your mind, lost in.
Like we're there
In person.
together. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. I like that.
We're both suffering in the fires together.
I don't wish that upon you, my friend.
No, man. I listen, we had our hurricanes at the beginning of the year. We got that done with, and now, damn, it's now California's turn. I mean, I'm not trying to like make a laugh out of the matter. It's just, I'm an artist, so like I'm one of those people that it kind of like hurts a little when you see people that are creative and passionate,
Right.
have to go through something like this, you know?
I was just looking at my levels. They look like they're a lot less than yours. I don't know if that's a problem.
I'll be honest with you. Sometimes I don't even adjust my like levels properly because I'll sometimes do like audio recordings, like music and lyrics and stuff, and then I just totally forget to update that when I go back into recording.
I just don't want to make sure I'm not spiking. Oh yeah, I am spiking now.
Yeah,
Okay, hold on.
I'll raise it just a little. Yeah, there you go.
How's that? Is that better?
Yeah. And like honestly, what I was getting at is because I know that even for your own self, I don't know how long have you been out there? Mind me asking, in LA?
About 6-7 years now.
Is that the longest you've been somewhere, or you've been in other places the longest?
About the same amount of time in New York, and then I was raised in Virginia.
Okay. The reason I'm asking this is because I know even for myself that whenever you move to different environments, it could be like the place you grew up or the place that you were like there for a few years and kind of experiencing things. Those kind of add a lot to your own story, like even to your like what you do, like your passions. How has that been like for yourself, to be honest?
Honestly, it's are we recording right now?
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay, cool. I like it. I like it. We're going. We're going.
We're going.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I didn't know if you were going to do an intro. Actually, it looks like I'm still really hot.
Is it?
Yeah, I want to make sure the sound's okay. How's that?
I'll tell you something. I had once a guest on. I'm not going to say who, and they know who they are. Are we recording yet? Are we recording? Oh, did we start yet? Are we recording yet? Okay, are we recording? Okay, great. Hi, this is Lost in the Groove. We have... Hello? 5 minutes. Like I'm like, that's it. I don't give a shit. Well, we could start at 3. We could talk for 10 minutes. And I'll press the recording button whenever I'm fucking ready.
I like it. All right.
Yes. But, yeah, I mean, even for yourself, like, your own creativity, your own experience, like, I feel that even the place you grow up or the different places you go with, it adds something to your career,
For sure.
How has that been for you?
Yeah, I think for me, growing up, humble beginnings, rural Virginia, just kind of gave me the opportunity to focus in on really just kind of being, in nature a lot of times, not being around the crazy societies that I now have been in my adult life in New York City and LA. And I think it's just been,
bigger populations.
Bigger populations. I think it was a really good starting point for me. It forced me, to really just kind of immerse myself in creativity. And my outlet for that was local theaters, primarily in rural Virginia. I got my first paid gig going to dinner theater, which again is a humbling process because you're on stage and then you're serving tables, before the show and after the show. And so that's kind of where I started. And then when I moved back to New York City, it was just, like going back home. My family, my mom and dad actually are originally from New York City. So it felt like moving home. And I got to live with my grandmother. And it just felt like, within a big city, I got to really come home every night. And that was really important for me. And it really gave me the opportunity to just kind of, I don't know, focus on my career and my craft and just take in the city in every way that I could. So, then I just kind of really did. I got my equity card, which is for your listeners, the Broadway Union. I, was on a professional tour, an equity tour. And I just caught the bug really early on and got to study with some great teachers. One that really sparked my move actually out to LA was Terry Schreiber, who has trained some great actors. He has his own studio there. He actually was Edward Norton's coach for a while, and
Really?
he
I didn't know
just
that.
yeah, and so he really honestly became like a grandfather to me. He's just such a warm soul, a lover of actors, and he brought me into his office, and he was the one that said, maybe you should give LA a shot. I was up for quite a few Broadway roles, and just missed final callbacks and things like that, and so the next journey for me was maybe trying the West Coast. And my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, we moved out to LA in January, and it was 85 degrees out here, and we just kind of never looked back, and that's kind of where the journey continues on to this day.
Yeah, I think that's honestly incredible. And I mean, you started off with theater, and then you moved
Yeah.
on to acting.
hmm
Yeah, I know. I noticed that like there's a lot of actors that they start off in theater and then they move on to actual like film or television or other forms of media, which believe it or not, there's a lot these days. Um, but I find that interesting because theater is very different than a movie. Because a movie, you're not in front of an audience. You're in front of directors, producers, a whole slew of crew with a camera and like you being given direction. Like in theater, you can be in front of thousands of people, especially if you're on Broadway. Yeah, it's just whoa.
They're
It's
they're
just like
they're
night and
both
day.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, they are challenging in their own unique ways, right? I will speak to theater, because it is live, it is alive, and it's very much like you said, like the training wheels are taken off because there's no second take, third take, right? But there are challenges within film too. Is that prepare so long, like I did for this film, Somewhere in Montana, for two
Screenplays.
years, and then
Yeah.
you have essentially 1 or 2 days to, or really 1 or 2 takes sometimes, to really give away that scene. And there's a lot of technical elements to that too. I mean, I always jokingly say, the reality is that actors should be doing most of their work in pre-production, coming prepared to set, because crews are what make films great. And there are a lot of moving parts to a film, but you have to be on point when you are called upon in film, which is equally hard, honestly, in different ways. So
It
I
is.
will say, I think, growing up in theater definitely gave me a lot of the artistic backbone that I have now as a film and TV actor. But I would always want to go back to theater because it's my roots, and it's kind of the origin story of how I came to be an artist.
It's interesting because the meld or almost mesh between theater and like film or production is sitcoms. I mean, when they did have live audiences that are there, you know, I'm going to give a very famous example. I mean, if you take, for example, like even Friends, even though they had a live audience, they could sometimes, I think it was like three recordings. So there'd be like one live, one without the audience, and then there was like another take. I don't know all the terminology, forgive me. But it's almost an interesting adaptation of this, of theater, but in television form. There isn't that many shows that are made that way anymore either. We've kind of
Right.
veered very far away from that dynamic. Um, I've always wondered why. I don't know why. Like that's kind of like become a thing of the past. You know, I don't think like people have said like, oh, we don't want sitcoms anymore, made that way specifically.
Sure. I mean, things evolve. It's really just kind of mostly to do with the audiences, right? It's what people, want to consume as audiences, right? So a lot of times it really just comes down to how they test and how they do. But I obviously grew up in the sitcom era, and I do miss it. There are still some around, but you're right, not as much. I think a big dynamic now is that a lot of TV has become film. It's just long form film, and the productions for some of these shows. I mean, I can speak to my friend Graham McTavish. He's in House of the Dragon. I mean, the Game of Thrones, you know, enterprise, I'll say, is extraordinary. It is a film. I mean, the absolute production value alone is astronomical. So
Long
it really
form,
does,
yeah.
yeah, it plays to just kind of the grandness of what TV has become and the median it's become. And so I think because of that, and because of how these productions have formulated TV nowadays, I think it's kind of pushed some of the smaller budget sitcoms out of the picture.
Yeah, you know, to your point, which by the way is so true, you know, going back into the past and looking at, like, for example, when Titanic came out, you know, in 1996, yeah, there were long form films, but, you know, not that many films where you could rent it and it was 2 VHS tapes. You know, it was long. And part of that was like you almost got this immersive experience being in the movie theater and being able to watch this. We to your point, like we've kind of moved very much in that direction where it's not anymore where it's just films that are like this. It's like TV, like again, like limited TV series. That is a very popular thing. You can find it on history, sci-fi, psychological thrillers. Now they have limited series. There's a ton on Netflix. Um, you know, it's like, oh, you know what? I know it may sound strange, but it's where you can understand history if you watch the films and kind of like television of that era. You
Hmm.
can kind of get the understanding of how the people think and how they act. And I think that resonates very well with the people that are making these films at the same time, no?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that art reflects humanity, and it reflects the times that you're in. And a lot of times, to your point, it reflects just kind of what is relevant at the time. So I think that that's a great point, Dave. I completely agree.
I think the big elephant in the room, though, is technology.
For sure.
Because we went from, you know, for example, you take like, you know, like Westworld that came out in the 70s. We could do that in a week. A week. It took them what, like 4 years?
Hmm.
So we have that ability now to make TV shows like The House of Dragons or The Game of Thrones, where they have these insane budgets where they're just pouring tons of technology into this. You know, think about like AI, right? We may be able to watch a film from start to the end with Amy Winehouse, from start to finish.
Yeah.
Her dancing, her singing, her saying her story, her having struggle, all of that. And it's completely made by augmented reality.
Yeah, that's going to be a whole other challenge.
I
Obviously, it's one that
know.
I am on the forefront of, and it really does come to. I think a lot of times, I mean, I'll take it from the actor's perspective because there are so many perspectives within AI. Is I always wanted to act for acting, and I love the process of acting. And if you told me right now, you're a producer and, get in this booth and get the scans and get your voice taken away from you, and we'll just put you in a computer program and pump out a performance that we feel like is in line with what you might do, might being the key word. Um, I would 100 out of 100 times say no, because that's not the process for me. The process is, human tears, human emotions. And I worry about future generations if we get too lost in technology and we let go of our humanity, because human stories matter. And I never thought I'd be saying that, but you need people that are telling them, and you need the connection to the real emotions, or else you lose something. And I think you lose something not just in the art. I think you lose something in the society at large, because you need to see reality, or else you'll get lost in augmented reality
Yeah,
or
I mean,
artificial reality.
well, I remember, I remember as a young age, I'm 26, and I remember when digital art started becoming a really big thing. It started in like the early 2000s and didn't really start blowing up until like the mid 2000s. And I, I remember, there was a lot of scarcity, particularly with copyright infringement, ways of replication, and different things like that. But as time has gone on, it has allowed even actors to be able to have, great example is in the fashion industry. You
Mhm.
have now this way of technology where not only they're able to create like augment fabrics, but figure out the textures, the way that they work, the way that they'd feel. They can do this even, for example, in digital animation across the charts. Like, yeah, we weren't sure 25 years ago, but
Right.
there's still very much a human aspect now that makes it what it is. I feel that veering away from like the people that make these things a reality. Like, for example, like yourself, and you have the production team and you have everybody that comes along with it. It may become smaller, but you still need that human interaction, that human intuition to make those things, even with
I think
technology.
Yeah, I think intuition is a key word that you just said. I think that's dead on. I think when you lose the intuitive factor of your humanity in art, you lose really what art even is, right? Because art is human. It has been a reflection, as we've discussed today, of our history, of our societies, from age to age to age. And if we give that up right now, we are actually losing part of our own society. We're losing part of our own humanity. And I fear for future generations, because I don't want, young kids to look at a movie 20, 30 years down the road and be like, wow, mom and dad, this is a really crazy movie. There's actually people in it. And I think there is like something to that right now where, we should be afraid. And there are protections in place for some. Some are better than others. I got to be honest. I think the
Yeah.
writers union did a better job in contractually locking it down, where they said, AI cannot be a writer, and that is black and white. There's no gray area, where SAG after, I think, really missed. On record, I'll say it, and I did tell them, because I was on a lot of their talkbacks. They basically made it so that, actors could consent whether they wanted to, consent to AI or not. And I think that opens up a wormhole, because if you are the type of actor that maybe isn't in it for, I'll say the right reasons, or for the love of the game, for the process of it, then essentially, what happens if you're the producer and it's between me and Joey over here, and Joey will get in the booth and he'll get his likeness scanned and he'll get his voice taken away from him. And I say no, like I want the control of being able to tell my own story with my own instrument. It really puts me in a compromising position. And then essentially, who's going to get the role? Because maybe it's cheaper to get, Joey's likeness taken away from him and, just put it into a computer program. So there's a wealth of problems that I think are stemming from this. And honestly, it's just the start of it. That's what's crazy. So we really honestly don't know where it's going to go. But I fear for the future right now, And I fear for the future, not just as an artist, as an actor. I fear for what it does to our humanity if we get human beings taken away from it.
It always fascinates me, particularly with this idea of a dystopian future. You know,
Sure.
great examples are like the Terminator, or the Matrix. And it's kind of crazy now more than ever that like we kind of are in a Matrix. Like
Absolutely.
we kind of are in a virtual reality.
For
And
sure.
then when you realize that the universe is just a quantum computer, because it quantum computes on a molecular level. Like, I mean, we're literally single cell organisms that multiplied and complexed. It's just when you realize that even within organic substance, in organic material, you have this almost computerized interpretation. I'm not saying that like humans are robots. What I'm getting at is there's always this kind of blend of science, math, technology, and nature, and like, or the organic world that we live on. And in many ways, like they kind of they kind of live almost within harmony. We have to kind of almost live in harmony with it. We can either use technology to destroy our national parks, or we can use that technology to better enhance the environment of those national parks. Do you see where I'm going with this?
Absolutely. It's a show that I've actually really taken to with my wife recently. It's Severance, and it's a brilliant show. It is
I'm
scary
on
and
season 2.
terrifying.
It's on season 2, and
Yeah.
I remember I watched that show when I had a corporate job refilling CPAP supplies. There are nights I couldn't sleep
hmm
because I'm going to say this. There was that constant thought of, what if my job offered a severance program? So I don't have to remember this horror for 8 hours every single day. Just like
Would you
that.
do it?
That's the scary shit, bro. Like when you're in that corporate insane environment, like you're pondering to yourself, like, am I literally thinking about like sacrificing my brain to a company to put a chip in there so I lose 8 hours of my days? And like they compare me to an innie and a fucking Audi. Like I have now 2 people I have to fuck, like me and then this other person. It really makes you think.
Oh,
It
it's an
really.
incredible think piece. Absolutely. Yeah. But again, I think in many ways we've already been severed, right? Because like we've talked about on your show today, it's that we are really kind of up against AI anyway, and a lot of people, I think, younger generations are completely immersed in social media, and they see that as their primary like life and their life source. And so, in many ways, I feel like the severance has actually already happened, regardless of the chip being planted in our brains. And I think that's what's scary about it, is I think it plays to a lot of the things that are already happening in our culture and our society. And yes, it's that I think the way that it does it so well is it's like if you give yourself to severing yourself from yourself, then what are you giving up? And I
I
know
love
that
that,
we're
by the
only in
way.
season 2. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It one thing also to notice is the environment in Severance. If you watch Severance, I grew up in New York. Okay, you've lived in New York City. One thing is it's gloomy a lot of the time of the year. And that I like when I'm watching it, like I can remember that cold feeling and
Mhm.
all the old crummy cars. It's like the show in itself is like an analogy. It's like, hey, you think you're living in like paradise, But hey, put on this pair of glasses. This is what the world looks like. Crappy
Mm-hmm.
cars from the 80s and New York in fucking January. It's not in New York, but that's it's only. Damn, I'm like complaining from New York. You know what? I should shut the fuck up because like there's people in like Wyoming, in Washington that have it hella way worse than I have. But damn, that that feeling of being cold.
Yeah, and I mean, regardless
It's,
of where you live on this planet, I gotta be honest, I can't imagine a worse hell than being away from this planet, and that's where these characters live, right? Because they live, who knows, like
they don't
20,
know.
50 floors below the Earth's surface. Like they're in a box, they're in an experiment, and I think that is like terrifying to me. So, regardless of anything that might be better or worse in the world, I would still rather live within the world and not separate myself from my own humanity.
Oh yeah, for sure. 100%. And like I feel that also like going back to the point of like being cold, okay? When it's really cold outside, I don't know, for me personally, I like being around other people, particularly in like a room,
Sure.
inside. And just the reason being is because like I don't want to like constantly remind myself that it's like -5 degrees outside. I kind of want to just enjoy my time right now. It's almost where like for me, cold pushes me to be like, I don't want to experience this now. Let me delete
Mm,
this out of my brain.
mm. Yeah, 100%.
It I wonder though. I wonder though these TV shows, particularly like Severance. I'm like almost getting into like the conspiracy realm of what are these writers trying to tell us? Because I feel like it all stems down to that person, that motherfucker that sits down with a pen and decides to start writing this. What? Why? What made you decide to start writing this? Like,
I think
we're yeah,
I think they're telling us everything that we already know if we're really connected to our own humanity and if we're awake, right? If we're seeing what's in front of us. I believe that, like I said, I think art dictates reality a lot of times and it enforces reality and it forces people to see things that maybe they aren't quite seeing and it brings it to the forefront. So, just because we're talking about this show and kind of, really how it's kind of dictating our modern times and technology and distancing ourselves from reality is I think it's I think art is so important and I think it needs to be told from the human perspective for this reason, right? AI
yeah.
would not write Severance. AI would not write Severance. A human would write Severance because a human would understand that AI or technology is taking over and that people are being disconnected from their feelings and people are being disconnected from their humanity. But you think AI is going to write that? No. So I
One,
think that's where,
yeah,
where shows like this are so important. And that is, in a nutshell,
yeah, it
why
is.
acting and filmmaking and really all art is so important to come from a human perspective and only a human perspective.
True. It really, you touched on this earlier. You're talking about it's called Somewhere Montana. Uh, you I wanted you to like just go over. It's a film, right?
Yep,
Um, what's the what's the story about? Because I'm actually
absolutely.
curious. Yeah.
So Brandon Smith wrote a really great story of the times. It's very powerful. The basic premise is that there's a West Coast director, Fabian Verdugo, played by yours truly, and John Alexander, played by Graham McTavish. And we basically need each other. It's a situational story in that we both need each other, but we are two uniquely different people from two different worlds. I need his ranch because Kat, played by the incredibly talented Michelle Hurd, my friend, is my producer. And producers look out for their directors. You see producers work with directors over and over again because they're in alignment with each other. And she's that kind of person in my life that, tells me what I need to hear as a director.
Tough love.
Tough love, right? And so we have a great scene in the beginning that really showcases that, and it's a scene that's very dear to my heart. And it is on the way to John's ranch because, again, I think people don't understand when you're a filmmaker and you love your craft so much. It's part of your legacy. It's part of who you are, and everything. If you are type A, like I am in my life, and like Fabian is in the story of Somewhere in Montana, everything has to be perfect. Everything has to be just right to be able to articulate the story that you want to tell. And so John's Ranch is that perfect location that we've been seeking. And unbeknownst to Fabian, John is going through some really financially troubling times. And his daughter, Lainey, played by my friend Kaylee Macchio, is trying to be the peacemaker and being like, Dad, won't you just give them a chance? Because this could save our ranch. Again, his ranch is his legacy. My film is my legacy. So we have two legacies at play in this film. And you can just see from the first scene where we finally meet Fabian and John, that the two of them just don't get each other. They're from two different worlds, and there's like just instant judgment, and there's instant dissonance. And it speaks to the times that we're in right now as a society in the world where we just have forgotten the ability to see each other. And I do think that, since we're talking about it, I think social media and technology is a big part of that, because it distances you from seeing the full person. You're really just seeing maybe a line on a social media platform, or something that's been reinterpreted through media. You're not getting to know people as well. And so I think it really does, just create a automatic dissonance because of the reality that we don't learn how to let other people in anymore. We just shut them out. And so this is a story of the times, and that we are put in this impossible situation where we have to work through it. We have to find a way to work through it, because at the end of the day, and I think this is a big through line through the film, is that we need each other. There's more that can connect us than will ever divide us if we can just let other people in and start to see the humanity within them.
Yeah, something you realize over time is that you can't be successful by yourself.
Right.
And you can't be happy if you can't share it with others. Even for myself, I can say that you have to have people in your life. Just like the way that you were talking about, like the passion of that connection you have with the producer. There's something that people can give you. I don't know, like maybe it's a beer, or just like a tap on the back, or like, hey, stop being a fucking idiot. I love those. Those are my favorites.
Sure. Of course. 100%. And I mean, it to your point, it's one of the lines in the movie, and it's a great line. It's not people in life that matter. I'm sorry, it's not things in life that matter. It's people, not not ideologies. People. It's not things that matter in life. It's people, not ideologies. It's people that matter. And I think that is a key element to Brandon Smith's script, is that we really need to go back to the beginning of how much we really needed each other, especially in our country, since we are, both speaking as Americans, is that, there were times where people from different sides of the aisle used to really let each other in and work together and be part of the same solution. And I just feel like at this point, there is just such a massive disconnect between people that think differently, in that the way that we just kind of like say, fuck it to the other person. And it's never really come to that, at least on this level that I've seen. And I think that social media and media is the fuel to the flames when we think about that. And this was such a unique experience for me personally, because I
Yeah.
was in Montana, and I've been a city boy my whole adult life with New York City and Los Angeles, but being able to reconnect myself to nature, I actually drove myself up to set. I was the only person to do that, that
Good for
wasn't a
you.
Montana local. And I did that on purpose because I wanted to take almost a trip that would take me out of, the the city, the complications, the
Just
sophistication of the
imagine.
city.
Listen, imagine the playlist on this man's car.
I do have a playlist, actually. It is my Somewhere in Montana play. There's a lot of Counting Crows, a lot of Tom Petty.
Oh my
Um,
God.
but there is still a Spotify playlist. You got me.
How long is that drive from LA to Montana? That must be
So
like
so
20
I broke it
hours?
up. Yeah, it's about 18 to 20
Okay.
driving hours. But I think for me, I wanted to take little stops, right? So I came
Did
from
you do the
LA.
2-day or the 3-day stop?
Oh gosh, I think I made it actually 5 days. I did 5 days.
Good for
Um,
you. You
I took my
really,
time. I took my
yeah.
time. So this is how I did it. I went from LA to Vegas. I actually, ironically, stopped in Vegas the night that Mad Apple was premiering. So I got to like walk the red carpet and meet some of the cast members from Mad Apple, which is a phenomenal show. In case you're ever in Vegas, I highly recommend it. And what I love about Mad Apple specifically is it really is a love letter to New York City. So you can imagine me as a New Yorker, my family from New Yorker. I mean, when they played New York State of Mind, that's one of my favorite moments in the show. I started to cry. It really, really just kind of made me really just reminisce about the times in New York City. So it was a perfect 2-day trip, just kind of, getting back to basics and just kind of, having that like LA kind of grand experience, which is probably very much in the vein of Fabian Verdugo because he is an eccentric, right? And so that was the start of my trip. And then from there, it was total nature. I went to Zion. And I stayed at the Zion Lodge, which shout out to some of the people that I met there. Frank was really awesome there. He, showed me all the different hikes to do. And that night that I got there, I hiked till it got dark, and I almost didn't make it down the mountain because I was so immersed with the crystal
Was
lakes.
there,
And
there wasn't any light pollution there, was there?
mm-mm.
So, wow, you got to see the real Milky Way.
So it was gorgeous. I mean, I got to like basically hike up to the crystal lakes, and I can't remember, Dave, the last time that I've literally looked at a waterfall for a half an hour, and it was that trip that I did that and just started to reflect and started to just kind of get back in touch with my own humanity. And then from there, I went up to Salt Lake City, took the hike to the highest point there, looked over the snow-capped mountains, and then made my way to set because I did make it there early so I could shadow Brandon
Oh my God.
because he is a
Not
director. So
only
I could.
not only does this man travel a 5-day road trip for 4 or 5 days, okay, but he arrives early. Damn. Damn. Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry. I just had to.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a method thing. And I think method gets a bad rep sometimes. But for me, I wanted to experience the journey being, someone who was raised in a rural area of Virginia,
Right.
but then have lived my whole adult life in, sophisticated cities. I wanted to give myself that ability to take that emotional journey as well as the physical journey into Montana. And I had the most extraordinary feeling as I, came into Polson, Montana, where we shot the whole film. Shout out to Polson, Montana. Is it really, gave me this feeling as I was driving over the hillside. I felt like this was going to become a family. I really felt like the cast and crew for this film was going to become a really tight knit group. And I was right. We would go, on hikes together. We would share our meals together. We honestly couldn't get enough of each other, and the cast and the crew were interchangeable. We were all a part of the same family, and it was so special. And I think it was so special because we knew pretty early on that we were telling a story that was bigger than us. And so when I, say go see Somewhere in Montana, I can't stress it enough, because we're an indie film, and indie films are the resistance right now. So the more people can invest in really giving these human stories a chance right now, more than ever, it really means a lot for the future of what our film industry looks like.
You reminded me because, first off, 100%. I am a very big supporter of the underground artist world, particularly underground music. And the cool thing about indie world is you get things like the Toronto Film Festival. Okay.
Mm.
I had the pleasure. I went there, I think 2017, and it's amazing. You get to see all of these films, and like some of these are actually better than Hollywood productions, like acting wise, and some of the, like I remember, God, I can't remember the name of him. It had Demi Moore or Demi Moore. Do you know what I'm talking about? It was an indie film where she like gets this injection or something where like she becomes two people. What's it called? I'm gonna find it. But
Yes, I just saw it too.
isn't it amazing?
It's so incredible. She's won awards for it recently too. It is. We're gonna find it. We're gonna find it. I literally just saw it. It's bugging me that I.
Right?
It is It's the Substance.
It's The Substance. Yes, I watched it on Amazon. I got it early. But the point I was trying to get at is kind of like the same idea with going beyond yourself,
Right.
right? The same way you're kind of explaining with like Somewhere in Montana, where Demi Moore obviously like Demi. I call her Demi Moore. All right, until somebody corrects me, I'm gonna just call it Demi Moore. She struggled a lot and was open about it.
Yeah.
And this is the reason why she made this, and
Yeah,
obviously
powerful.
like it kind of like shows that she is like everybody else. She struggles just like everybody else. And like when the time came for her to go above and beyond, she was able to do it and be able to do it really well.
It was such a brave performance, and I like, I just blanked on the name of the movie because the movie itself made such a big impact on me. But it really is in the vein of Severance, right? It's what can disconnect you or entice you to utilize technology to become somebody else, or in this case with the substance, to go back to an earlier version of yourself, right? And it's like, what are you giving up? Because life is a journey, and we should enjoy the beginning, middle, and end of it. And I really do mean that. It's like, this is, something that I think was so courageous of her to do. I think it is a film that spoke to her many ways, in the way that Somewhere in Montana spoke to me. Artists and actors, honestly, we just want to leave behind a couple good stories. That has been my my experience of actors. Is they're some of the most selfless people that I've ever met in my life. And I would tell you, hand to God, I mean, like, they really are, because they're so giving of their energy. And when they find a script like The Substance or Somewhere in Montana or Severance, like we've been talking about today, it really speaks to essentially the times that we're in. And honestly, like, as an actor, I've always dreamed of telling stories that I felt like could make an impact in the current times that we're in. And Demi Moore, like, she saw this script and she knew that she had to do it. And she was a big proponent in making sure that it got done so brilliantly and so raw. I mean, it's horrific, right? It's very horrific. It's gory. It's dark. It's grotesque.
Psychological. Very
psychological.
Very psychological. And by the way, to the point where one thing that AI can't replicate is correct. I don't know what the terminology is. It's the The dialogue with no words. It's where you can there. It's just that stare. It's the look in the mirror. Ooh, but you feel something, and it technically is a part of the script.
Right.
There's no words.
I think so much of acting and telling stories is behavior, right? And every actor that I know has a different process in doing that. I think I've shared on your show today that I am a little bit method, and that's okay. I'm not that method that gets broadcast to the world. I consider it more of like a bastardized method where you have to like
It works
be
for
weird to
you.
people.
It's customized and tailored to you.
Yeah, and method acting in and of itself is not a bad thing. A lot of people that are actors use method to essentially feel like they're in the character, right? And
you know what the problem is that when Heath Ledger passed away, it's kind of like almost that became like the disdain in media. It's like, well, if you want to do method acting, you'll turn out like Heath Ledger. But he's an individual, right? I understand that, like, yeah, he got, but that's him. You have people like Danny DeVito, okay? How the hell does he do that? How does he go from one production to the other production, and it's like he was there the whole time? He's small, he's noticeable, you know exactly who he is, but he manages every single time to be something completely else.
Yeah.
Method
and I
acting.
think
Yeah.
method acting. And it really comes in all shapes and forms. I just feel like at a certain point, if you're doing it to be, quote unquote, like abusive to other people, whether it be the cast or the crew, then you're crossing the line. But and unfortunately, that's what essentially gets media attention a lot of times. But the good parts of method are like me taking the journey to Montana, right? And feeling the character arc of the journey. I lost 25 pounds in this film with the help of Jennifer and Nathan DeTracy and my friend. So they took me on as nutritionalists. They gave me a lot. I'm sorry, my light just turned off.
No, it's actually kind of cool,
It's
kind of like
mood lighting.
Yeah.
I don't really know, but I'm just gonna go with it because it works.
Honestly, like, that is insane nutrition. Like, how fast did you go down to 25? Like, lose 25 pounds? We're talking about like a week, 2 weeks, like a month.
It was a month and a half, and
Jesus.
Jen DeTracy did a great job to make it a very healthy process. And when you have a nutritionalist like that, you basically, this is like a fascinating part of the first time that I've ever had a nutritionalist really help me out in this vein was such a fascinating process for me, because I essentially told her what I wanted out of my body in this character, how I felt like the character was. Because again, Matt likes to lift weights, he likes to have his protein shakes, right? But I felt like Fabian was someone that missed meals. He was somebody that, like, was so wound up that he just was strung out a lot of times, and not a drug addict, not like that, but just like very hyper focused, like, essentially like, just like, yeah, I'm gonna have like my coffee and then I'm gonna forget to eat lunch sort of guy, because I gotta get this done, and I gotta get this done, and I actually can't take my lunch break because my actors need me right now, or my crew needs me, or because he's somebody that would go down with his ship. And a lot of those people don't take care of themselves. Honestly, they take care of others, but they don't take care of themselves. And I really wanted to showcase that, because again, there's a misconception sometimes about people that are big, that they're divas, that they are, like that they're selfish people. I wanted to bring to the forefront that Fabian is somebody that cares. He will be the last to go down with the ship while everybody else gets off the ship. That is who he is to his core. He cares about his people. They are his family. And so for me, it was, kitchen and cardio is what, Jen DeTracy said. She said, we need to put you on 5 small meals a day, and you need to eat them here, 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 here. And, you're basically doing cardio. And I didn't lift a weight for 2-3 months, basically. So I could essentially burn through a lot of my muscle mass and, my fat, and just kind of lean out. And it really did a lot for me, Dave, because when I found myself on set, I felt like I was in the body of Fabian Verdugo. And I think for that reason, it really was worth the, the work that I put into it and the investment that I put into it, because it gave me the just ability to come to set and really be ready to work and feel like I was really in the body of Fabian Verdugo.
You know what this this reminds me of? You might hate me. The dude from The Big Lebowski.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
I mean, the man looks like the dude. I like it like he embodies the character so well that that is your interpretation. I totally get where you're coming from. It's like it's not just what you're saying and your behavior. Sometimes you have to like look the part in order for it to work.
And feel the part, to your point. You
Right,
have to,
exactly.
because again, a lot of it is like being within your own instrument, and as an actor, the only instrument that you have is your body, and your voice and your eyes and your ears. And so a lot of times we have to figure out a way to craft that, or to manipulate that to what we believe the character is, because a lot of developing a character is a true belief in how you feel like that character behaves. And some of
Yeah.
that behavior affects your body, right? It's no different than, you as Dave or me as Matt. It's like my character, my personality dictates the way that I look. It dictates the way that I feel. And so I feel like actors give themselves sometimes like the buffer of being able to say, listen, this is what I can control. I can lose this weight. It will help me to feel a little bit more connected to this character. So why wouldn't I? And that is some of the work that really, doesn't sometimes get enough credit. It's hard. It's not easy to lose 25 pounds in a month and a half, but and to keep it off during the production. So I say, like, 2.5 months basically through the production.
Yeah.
And for me, it really became just important, because it made me feel more connected to what I was doing with that character.
I'll tell you, I've always been a creative person as long as I can remember. And it's like so weird because the thing that I enjoy the most is sharing with other people. It's like, even to your own sake, it's where like you're doing all of these things so you can share something about yourself, something that you creatively can do and do, as they say, masterfully well.
Right. It's
I'm
always
gonna trademark that. Beyonce,
I
I'm
think
for
you
you.
should. I think you should. The mastery is something that evolves too. I mean, your process always changes. I mean, mine has
Mhm.
always changed. We go back to the beginning of our conversation where I brought up Terry Schreiber, and I think what I loved so much about him is, he taught us Stanislavski, he taught us Meisner, he studied with Strasberg. I've done kabuki training, which is a Japanese art to really, get into every element of your movement as the character. So there are so many methodologies that you can take, and method acting as well, that I've been able to adopt within my own process now. And that can be ever changing, ever evolving. But I think that's one thing that I would tell a lot of actors is it's about finding your own process. And that is uniquely yours, because it has to be something that motivates you. It has to be something that gravitates to your need of telling the story. And if you can find that for yourself, there becomes a lot of joy that comes out of that, because
Yeah.
again, it is so joyful to get to tell a great story and to develop a great character. So the foundation in what you do and how you do that is a big part of that.
It is. And to your point, it's interesting because when you look um in other countries, particularly like I've watched shows that are from like France, like like Lupin is one that I've been watching, and you look at things, for example, like even in Korea. it's completely different. You know, like
Sure.
even with Korean, the way that like they talk to each, obviously it's in Korean, it's not in English, but just the communication, the way that, you know, they're moving around, their behavior, the way that they act, the way that they eat, the way that they it's like you almost have to like relearn, because obviously we're Americans, you know, and I like I've been watching some of this stuff since I was younger, but like this is not our normal culture. You know what I mean? It's not like
Mhm.
something that we're accustomed to. And by the way, I hate watching shows that are non-English with like the English dub. I always watch it with English subtitles. I need to hear the native language. I can't. Ugh, just
Me too.
yeah. I can't. It doesn't line up. You know what I'm talking about? It's like
Yeah.
it doesn't line up, and then your brain kind of gets, my brain gets a little fuzzy, and I'm like, I just go straight to my phone and I completely ignore what I'm just watching in front of me.
Sure. Sure. No, I totally get that. I mean, and again, it's slice of life, and slice of life is wherever you are in the world. So, I'm telling American stories as an actor because I'm an American, but stories all over the country are just, and all over the world are so vital right now to be told by humans and acted by humans and directed by humans and produced by humans and shot. I mean, I can't say enough about our cinematographer on Somewhere in Montana, AJ Young. I mean, he went out of the box. He found these really unique lenses that were anamorphic that made the film look grainy. He shot the film and the film within the film, and the way that John Shimke, our editor, edited those two together. I mean, I can't really say enough about the crew in creating films, because it's such a massive undertaking. And when you see the finished product, you're just so grateful to be a part of it. And that's where, I look at films all over the world, to your point, and I say, not only for us in this country, but for all over the world, we have to fight against the machine. We have to keep telling human stories, with and with only ourselves, right?
Right.
And I just hope that that will continue, because we can't give up our human voice to a machine. If we do that, I think that we really will, I mean, I hate to say lose everything, but it feels like that, because so much of art is through, the annals of time. Like it speaks to where people are at as a society. And I just don't believe that computers can get that. So, I keep saying this, really support your independent films. I know that we're asking a lot sometimes. We don't have the big marketing budgets, but we're on shows like yours today, Dave, because they get the word out to people to hopefully, get two people to watch and tell two of their friends and tell two of their friends. And Somewhere in Montana is just, it's a passion project. It's a beautiful film, and it is a story of the times that really can resonate in our society and in our world.
It is, and it's very much so an example of where, to what I said earlier, even with technology, I feel that it has given immense amount of strength for indie artists, particularly in the film industries and television shows, where now, yes, there are still like limitations, which I'll be very honest, like the shit that Netflix does sometimes, bro, come on. Like, just massive cuts, like they're taking like 30-40%, like insane. But
Mm-hmm.
you have now more than ever where independent artists, independent filmmakers, independent musicians, filmmakers, I mean, across the charts, have the ability now to use technology where they no longer have to go through that man and be like,
Mm.
hey, can you promote me? It's like, nah, we can be creative and we can do what we want and be successful at it,
Right.
because we have this technology to back us to be able to make that happen.
Yeah, we have to be able to unite with technology. It's not going anywhere.
No.
I'll go back to, AJ Young, our cinematographer, who took, lenses from these Soviet Union projectors, and then they're
That is
housed in these new
amazing.
casing. Yeah, it was so cool. And putting them into the camera, and it really just created such a visual masterpiece of in this film. And we need to partner with technology. We can't fully resist it, but
No.
we can't let it completely dictate what art does and says within our different societies, not just in our country, but around the world. Because if we do that, we will lose too much. And I do fear for our future if we do that.
I think a good analogy would be like a composer in an orchestra. You know, always the pieces in the orchestra can change. But you still need that composer. You still need that person to be able to bring those pieces together. You know, I always I'm like one of those, like, I don't even want to get like, like religious or anything, but like I very much like believe as an agnostic that this idea of like one entity, one being, one source, why is it one? Why can't it be multiple that's within one? Because, yes, we're on two sides of a coin when it comes to the artist world, but same thing applies.
Yeah.
You need all those people. You need that filmmaker. You need that producer. You need that person that's going to be able to help you build into that character. Like, yeah, it's one film, but it has all these pieces that made that one film a
Yeah,
reality.
it's open-minded thinking in religion, and it's a team sport in film. You need people, and you need to be open-minded. I mean, people need to get back to being open-minded, and I think a lot of times that means putting the phone down. It means stop, watching what other people are trying to tell you and adopting that as truth, and not only truth, but your truth. I mean, think about that. It's like you're watching people say something and you're just adopting it as something that now you believe. Like, look at the facts. Like, let's get back to, real, compassionate, thinking that is intelligent and connected with our own humanity. And this is a great conversation piece. For the film, because it really does speak to the fact that, the two lead characters don't necessarily see eye to eye at the beginning, or the middle or the end of the film. And that's okay, because what happens in the film is that we get to know each other. We get to let each other in. And when you get to the point where you let each other in and you start to see the humanity in one another, I feel like that is at the point where you start to find the path forward for our society and our world.
Yeah, it is. It really is. It really, for me, it sums up is not everything is perfect, and neither are relationships. Sometimes we connect with people for different reasons. Don't just push that person aside because you have those differences. Like, look, we all have our reasons, but there's sometimes like a good reason why you need that person in your life. And maybe what you need is just that reminder, right? Is just that reminder that it is a real thing and it is an important thing of our lives that we come across. I think most people come across that situation at least once in their life, right?
Amen.
Yeah.
100%.
Matt, I know you have your film. You have social links, obviously. Do you have any like a website or a handle?
Absolutely. So the best way to find me, because I can only do so many social media platforms,
Right,
is
obviously.
I'm very active on Instagram.
Okay.
You can find me on Instagram at Matt Drago, MattDrago, at Matt Drago. From there, I've got a link tree up. It's got all my websites, my actor website, mattdrago.com. It's got Dragon Hunter Productions, my production company with my wife. It also has my IMDb if you want to check out my past and future projects. And, just follow me for, again, career happenings, but also life, right? Because I consider the two as one in my own life. So it's a great way to just keep in touch with me and find out what's happening in my journey as an artist.
Awesome. And by the way, I wanted to just say, shout out, I have a link tree too. And listen, you just click on it and everything and anything you need pertaining to like what Matt's doing or what this podcast, it's there. All right.
Yep.
It's all there.
I love Linktree.
Oh
Yep.
my God. It's amazing. Question for you. Do you have any like film festivals you're scheduled to go out, or you don't do that at all?
We're going to Palm Springs actually next week, and
wonderful.
doing a screening there at the Mary Pickford Theater, 7 o'clock on January 29th. If anybody is around, you can check us out. Quite a few of the actors will be there. The director of the film, Brandon Smith, the producer, Eden Bryant, will be there. I believe Joe Borden, the producer as well, will be there. So that's on the 29th. And then I'm doing my own screening on the 31st in Newhall, California. Actually on the Western Walk of Fame, which is really cool, in a little black box theater, which, is going to be really special to have some friends and some really close people there that night as well. So we've been doing little screenings and, just really enjoying just kind of where it goes from there.
I like that. And something like, I'll tell you, like, even from my own experience, like film festivals is like, it's that add a little taste besides the film. Like you kind of get like, introduction, in the book, with most movies, you don't get the introduction. Like it's a way of like, and a plus, you pick Palm Springs, I think like the perfect time of the year,
Sure.
because it's a hella hot, like majority.
Yep.
Smart. Listen, Matt, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Anybody
Same,
out there,
Dave.
check out Somewhere in Montana. It's available now? Or it's going to be available now? Or soon? When's it going to be available?
It's in theaters now. These next couple of weeks are going to dictate if it gets to more theaters, and then eventually, yes, it will go to VOD and streaming as well.
Awesome. I can't wait.
And again, I will put all the updates to when that happens on my social media at Matt Drago on Instagram.
Awesome. And anybody out there, if you want the links for Matt's info and website, will all be in the description box below. If you want to check out more of the podcast, you can find us at Lost in the Groove Pod, everywhere and anywhere you listen to podcasts. With that, we'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.